On that Christmas Eve, an 18-year-old young man touched the image of the Virgin Mary. He remained in silence for almost 2 minutes, and when he opened his eyes, he said something to his father that made a 55-year-old man collapse in front of everyone. What did he say? A miracle of the Virgin Mary that began with a touch and did not end there. But before we continue, leave a comment saying where you are watching from and what time it is there right now. I would love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Do you know that kind of man who speaks very little? Not because he is shy, but because he has learned that words do not always solve things. Robert was 55 years old. He had worked at the same steel factory in Pittsburgh since he was 23, 32 years, punching the clock in the same place. Hands calloused from a lifetime of carrying heavy loads. Nathan was 18 years old, and for 12 of those years he had not walked. Robert pushed his son's wheelchair every day, to the van, to school, to physical therapy, a silent ritual the two of them knew by heart. But there was one thing Nathan did not know, or pretended not to know, the guilt his father carried. 12 years earlier, Nathan was 6 years old. That age when you run without looking, laugh for no reason, and believe the world is a giant playground. The accident happened on a Tuesday in the fall. Nathan was playing in the neighbor's backyard. There was an old treehouse there. The boards were already rotten, but the kids climbed up anyway. Nathan climbed. The wood gave way. He fell from nearly 4 meters high and struck his spine on an exposed root. Robert was on the second shift when the phone rang. It was the neighbor who was watching Nathan. Her voice was shaking. He dropped everything and ran to the hospital. Robert had raised his son alone since Nathan was 2 years old. The mother left and never came back. It was just the two of them. And the grandmother, Robert's mother, who helped take care of her grandson. The doctors explained the situation. There was a severe spinal cord injury, but there was an experimental treatment. A surgery with specialists that could restore part of the movement. The problem was the deadline. It had to be done within a maximum of 3 weeks before the damage became permanent, and the cost was high, very high. The health insurance did not cover it. Robert did the math that very night. He asked for a loan at the bank, but the amount he needed was denied. He sold the car. He sold the vinyl record collection his father had left him as an inheritance. He sold the tools from the garage. He used every credit card he had, went into debt with relatives, borrowed money from co-workers at the factory. It was not enough. The deadline passed. The surgery did not happen. And Robert spent the next 12 years blaming himself, thinking that if he had worked more, saved more, done more, his son would be walking. Do you know what it is like to carry a guilt like that? It is not something you think about every day. It is something you feel, like a weight on your chest that you get used to carrying. That becomes part of you. Nathan never mentioned anything about it. On the contrary, there was something different about that boy. He prayed every day with an old blue rosary that had belonged to his grandmother, that rosary worn down by use, which she held every day until the last day of her life. Robert did not understand. How could his son believe in a God who had allowed that to happen? He himself had stopped believing, not all at once. It happened little by little. First, he stopped praying before meals. Then he stopped going to Mass on Sundays. Then he stopped asking God for help when things got hard. But every year, at Christmas, Nathan asked the same thing. "Dad, can we go to Christmas Mass?" Nathan asked. And every year, Robert said yes. Not out of faith, but because he could not bring himself to say no to those eyes. December 23rd, Pittsburgh covered in snow. Robert got home from work earlier, reduced shift because of the holiday. He found Nathan in the living room, his grandmother's rosary in his hands, watching the flakes fall outside the window. "Tomorrow is the Mass, Dad," Nathan said. It wasn't a question, it was a confirmation. Robert took off his boots, that everyday ritual. Take off the boots, hang the coat, wash his hands. "I know, son," Robert replied. "Do you remember how Grandma always said that the Christmas Mass was special?" Nathan asked. Robert remembered. Of course he remembered. His mother had that strong faith, the kind that can't be explained, that simply exists. "I remember," Robert said. "This year will be different, Dad. I can feel it," Nathan said. Robert didn't answer. What could he say? Have you ever been to a Christmas Mass? The one in the late afternoon, on Christmas Eve? There's a different energy. It doesn't matter whether you believe or not. There's something in the air. Maybe it's the anticipation. Maybe it's the number of candles. Maybe it's just the fact that on that specific afternoon, people stop running. December 24th, 5:40 in the afternoon. Robert parked the adapted van in the church parking lot. The same church as always. The one his mother attended, the one where he was baptized, the one he had barely set foot in since Nathan's accident. The cold cut through everything. He walked around, opened the side door, took out the wheelchair. Nathan was already ready. Scarf, gloves, his grandmother's rosary in the pocket of his coat. "It's freezing, son." "Are you sure you want to?" Robert began. "I'm sure," Nathan replied. He always was. The church was packed. You know that kind of crowd where you look and think, there won't be any space? That was it. People standing in the aisles, elderly folks who had arrived hours earlier to secure a pew. Robert pushed the chair up the side ramp. When he managed to get inside the church, he looked around searching for the reserved area for wheelchair users. It was empty. They headed there. Nathan positioned himself beside the aisle with a direct view of the altar. Robert stood next to his son, looking at the image of the Virgin Mary. And he felt it. You know that smell that shouldn't be there? It wasn't incense, it wasn't the candles, it was something sweet, gentle, like roses. But there were no flowers in the church. Robert looked around. No one seemed to notice, only him, or maybe only him and Nathan, because his son closed his eyes and smiled. The Mass began. Christmas hymns, readings, the priest speaking about hope, about light in the darkness, about new beginnings, 12 years, 12 Christmases. 12 times Robert had come to this same church, pushing this same chair, carrying this same guilt. The Mass continued. The Gospel reading, the story everyone knows, Mary and Joseph, the manger, the shepherds, the star. Father Thompson began to speak. He was 68 years old and had been in that parish for more than 20. He was the one who baptized Nathan as a baby. He was the one who celebrated Nathan's grandmother's memorial Mass. Christmas is a time for gifts, but the greatest gift there is can't be bought. It can't be wrapped. It doesn't fit under a tree, the priest said. Robert wasn't even paying attention. The greatest gift someone can give themselves is forgiveness, Father Thompson continued. Robert lifted his eyes. How many of you carry guilt for something that happened years ago? How many of you look back and think, if I had done things differently, if I had managed, if I had been better, the priest said. Robert felt a tightness in his chest. Nathan looked at his father. He saw that he was pale. So this Christmas, I want to ask one thing of all of you. If you carry old guilt, if you blame yourselves for something you couldn't do, if you can't forgive yourselves, think about this. Maybe you did everything that was possible. Maybe the guilt you carry is not yours, said Father Thompson. Robert felt the tears coming. The priest didn't say any names. He didn't look at Robert. He didn't point at anyone. But Robert knew. Nathan took his father's hand, squeezed it. "Dad, are you okay?" Nathan whispered. Robert couldn't answer. He just held his son's hand. Do you believe in coincidences, or do you believe that some things happen for a reason? Robert had always been the first kind. Coincidences, chance. The universe is random and indifferent. But that night, in that church, with his son's hand in his, and the priest's words, hanging in the air. He wasn't sure of anything anymore. The Mass ended. But people didn't leave. A line formed. A line to go to the front, to the image of the Virgin Mary, to touch the mantle, to make a request, a prayer. Nathan tugged at his father's coat sleeve. "Dad, I want to go there," Nathan said. Robert looked at the line. 20, 30 people. It was already past 7 in the evening. He was tired. He had woken up at 5 for the factory shift. "Son, it's late. Tomorrow we can—" Robert began. "Please, Dad," Nathan asked. Robert sighed, looked at the line again. Nathan was in a wheelchair. He had the right to priority, but his son never liked to use that. "All right then," Robert said. He positioned himself behind the chair and pushed toward the front of the line. Some people made space when they saw the wheelchair. An elderly man gestured for them to go ahead. "You can go, son. You first," the man said. Robert nodded in thanks and pushed Nathan up to the statue. The statue of the Virgin Mary stood there, life-sized, with the blue mantle that seemed brighter up close. Or was it the candlelight? Nathan leaned forward in the chair. He stretched out his hand and touched it. "You know when time seems to stop?" Robert saw his son close his eyes, saw his lips move, murmuring something he couldn't hear, saw an expression of such deep peace on Nathan's face. And he felt it, that smell of roses again, stronger now, impossible to ignore, and something else. A pressure in his chest, not pain, something being released, as if a rope that had been tied for 12 years was finally coming loose. Robert couldn't move. Nathan stayed there with his hand on the cloak for a full minute, maybe 2. And then he opened his eyes. He looked at his father and said, "It wasn't your fault, Dad." Robert felt his legs give way. The tears came. 12 years of held-back tears. 12 years of swallowed guilt. 12 years believing he had failed as a father. That if he had managed to get the money, his son would be walking. Everything came at once. Robert fell to his knees beside his son's chair, in front of everyone, in front of the altar, in front of the image he had avoided looking at for more than a decade, and he cried. Nathan placed his hand on his father's head. "It's okay, Dad. It's okay," Nathan said. "Have you ever driven while crying?" The snow falling. Everything was a blur of tears and white flakes. Nathan was in the back seat, silent. Looking out the window, Robert parked in the garage, turned off the engine, stayed there, hands on the steering wheel. They went inside the house. Almost 8 o'clock. The tree was lit in the corner of the living room, the presents underneath. The same scene every year, but different. Robert helped his son transfer to the couch, made hot chocolate, sat beside him, and for the first time in 12 years, he told him. He told him about the day of the accident, about the phone ringing at the factory, about the doctor explaining the deadline for the surgery, about the money he tried to gather any way he could, about the feeling of having failed. Nathan listened, without interrupting, without judging. When Robert finished, his son took his hand. "Dad, you worked 2 shifts for 12 years, sold everything you had, stayed awake entire nights when I had nightmares. Never, not once, made me feel less because I'm in this chair. Do you really think I need legs to know I have the best father in the world?" Nathan asked. Robert couldn't answer. He just hugged his son. And they stayed there, father and son, in the early hours of Christmas morning, while the snow fell outside and the hot chocolate cooled on the table. Christmas had passed. The New Year had arrived. January brought the intense cold of Pittsburgh. And it brought something else. It was on a Monday morning. Robert was leaving for work when Nathan called out to him from the living room. "Dad!" Nathan called. "What is it, son?" Robert asked. "Come here, quick," Nathan said. Robert turned back. Nathan was sitting on the couch with a strange expression on his face. "What is it?" Robert asked. "My foot. The right one," Nathan said. "What about it?" Robert asked. "I've felt it. It's tingling, like when your leg falls asleep and starts to wake up. But I haven't felt my legs for 12 years, Dad." "And now I'm feeling it," Nathan explained. They went to the doctor that same week. The tests were done. The same tests as always. But this time it was different. The neurologist, Dr. Patterson, called both of them into the office. He had a serious expression. "Mr. Walker, Nathan, I need to be honest with you," Dr. Patterson said. "What's going on, doctor?" Robert asked. "The tests are showing improvement," Dr. Patterson explained. "What does that mean?" Nathan asked. "It's too early for prognoses. It may stabilize at this level. But the fact is there is change where there was a complete lesion," Dr. Patterson replied. Nathan looked at his father. Robert looked at his son. And neither of them said anything, because some things don't need words. March in Pittsburgh, the ice melting, the first signs of spring. And in the Walker household, other signs. Nathan was able to move his toes, not much. A subtle movement. But it was there. The physical therapist was coming 3 times a week now. Exercises, stimulation. Everything that had never worked before suddenly seemed to make a difference. "The progress is gradual. I don't want you to create expectations beyond what the tests show. For now, we have minimal sensory and motor gains. It may progress, it may stabilize. We'll continue the protocol and evaluate month by month," the physical therapist said. Robert nodded. But deep inside, in the place where he had stored guilt for years, there was now something different. Hope. Do you know what else changed? Robert started praying again. Not all at once. It happened little by little. First, a whispered, "Thank you," before going to sleep. Then a Hail Mary he remembered from childhood. Then the entire rosary, using the old blue rosary that had belonged to his mother. Nathan noticed. One night he found his father in the living room, the rosary in his hands, his eyes closed. He said nothing. He simply went to his father with the wheelchair and stayed there beside him, and they prayed together. June, Pittsburgh in the summer, humid heat, people in the parks, life everywhere, and at the physical therapy clinic, a moment no one there would ever forget. Nathan was at the parallel bars, those bars he had been looking at for months. Those bars that represented something that seemed impossible. The physical therapist held one side, Robert the other. "Try again, Nathan. Slowly," said the therapist. The young man took a deep breath, gripped the bars, and stood up. For 3 seconds, maybe 4. His legs were shaking. His arms were doing most of the work, but he was standing. After 12 years, Robert couldn't hold it in. The tears came again, but this time they were different. They were tears of joy. December 24th. Exactly 1 year later, snow fell over Pittsburgh. The same snow, the same cold. The same city Robert had known forever. But everything was different. 5:40 in the afternoon. Robert parked the van in the same place as always, walked around it, opened the side door, and Nathan got out. With a walker, slowly, 1 step at a time, but he got out, on his own. The path to the church was long, every step a victory, every meter an advance the doctors couldn't fully explain. Partial spontaneous recovery, they called it. Rare, but possible. Robert didn't care about the name they gave it. He knew what it was. The church was full. The same crowd as the year before, the same candles, the same altar, and the same statue of the Virgin Mary. Nathan walked down the center aisle, slowly, the walker making a soft sound against the stone floor. People looked. Some recognized the young man who used to arrive in a wheelchair every Christmas. Some cried. Father Thompson was the same as the year before. He saw Nathan coming in. He stopped the Mass for a moment. "Welcome back, Nathan," Father Thompson said. The young man smiled. Robert followed behind, not pushing a chair this time, just walking, with tears on his face and his mother's rosary in his pocket. They sat in the front pew. The Mass ended. The same line formed. The same people wanting to touch the image make their requests, their prayers, father and son, side by side. When it was their turn, Nathan touched the blue mantle first. He closed his eyes, whispered something. Then he looked at his father. "Your turn," Nathan said. Robert hesitated. He hadn't touched that image since the time when his mother was still alive and used to bring him every Sunday. He reached out his hand. The fabric was soft, softer than he expected. He closed his eyes and said quietly, "So, no one could hear. Thank you, Virgin Mary." On the way back home, the snow had stopped. The sky was clear, stars everywhere. Nathan looked out the window from the back seat. "Dad," Nathan called. "Yes," Robert answered, looking in the rearview mirror to see his son. "I never told you what Grandma asked for in her prayers every night," Nathan said. "What was your grandmother's prayer?" Robert asked. "She asked for two things, that you would find peace, and that I would be able to walk again," Nathan replied. Robert looked in the mirror. His son was smiling. "Both happened, Dad." "Both," Nathan said. Robert couldn't answer. He just let the tears fall as he drove home. Some call it coincidence, others call it faith. Still others call it a miracle. Robert didn't know which word to use, and honestly, it didn't matter. What mattered was that he slept in peace now, without guilt, without wondering what he could have done differently. And in the pocket of his coat, his mother's old blue rosary rested, worn from use. Prayed thousands of times by a woman who never lost her faith. Some prayers take years to be answered, but they are answered. Before finishing, I want to invite you to be part of our prayer community for the Virgin Mary, a space of faith and hope where people from all over the world come together to pray and share the graces they have received. If you feel in your heart the desire to be part of this chain of prayer, click below and become a member of the channel today and come pray with us. And look, if you made it this far, to the very end of Robert and Nathan's story, do one thing for me. Write in the comments, "First step," because that was exactly what changed everything. Nathan's first step, and Robert's first step toward forgiveness. I want to see how many hearts this story truly reached. And every time I read "first step" in the comments, I'll know that one more person believes that miracles still happen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Write in the comments about a miracle you have already witnessed or experienced. And share this video with someone who needs to renew their hope this Christmas. May the Virgin Mary continue blessing and protecting you and your family. Amen.